This is Anti-Imperialist Front TV news for the week ending February 15th, 2025. Idil Culture Centre in Istanbul raided. The culture centre in Şişli was raided by police on February 14th. Group Yorum members Cem Dursun, Bergun Varan, Merve Kurt, Sevda Kurban and Ridvan Akbaş were detained. Fascism in Turkey has raided the centre many times over the years, but has been unable to prevent it functioning. According to Group Yorum, today our Ideal Culture Centre was raided once again by the AKP's killer policemen, and our friends 5 Group Yorum workers were detained under torture. In our Ideal Culture Centre, our instruments have been stolen, our doors have been dismantled, and all our belongings have been smashed. They detained our friends under torture. It was an unlawful detention. They want to terrorize this place by periodically raiding the Ideal Cultural Centre, IKM, but we will continue to uphold the values and traditions of Helen and Ibrahim. Even if we remain one, even if there remains a single Group Yorum member outside, and it is our call to you and our people. Let's embrace the Ideal Cultural Centre and the workers of Group Yorum, and we will continue to produce for the people and for revolutionary artistry. The hunger strikes in Turkey opposing well-type isolation prisons continue, with Sercan Ahmet Aslan on the 120th day, Serkan Onur Yilmaz on the 98th day, Mulla Zincir on the 95th day, and Baki Can Işık on the 59th day as of February 16th. Saura slams internment of Tyrone Republican. Saura and the IRPWA take this opportunity to send our full support and solidarity to our comrade Brian Cavlin, who was interned by a British court today. Current Republican prisoner Rory Logan was also re-interned after being taken from Magaberry to face interrogation and further trumped-up charges. Speaking from the party's Newry office, Saura National Chairperson Stephen Murney said, "This is a clear example of the imperialist conveyor belt to which Republicans have been subjected for decades. Brian, a former Republican prisoner, is no stranger to injustice at the hands of the British occupiers, their courts and their prisons, and now once again finds himself held in captivity." Stephen added, "It is obvious that the British state can deliberately intern Republican activists at the drop of a hat. They do this in order to deter Republicans from being politically active and to stifle the activities of legitimate political and welfare organizations such as Saura and the IRPWA. It is simply used to suppress legitimate political activism and to remove dedicated activists from their families and communities. If the Crown forces think that their policy of internment will somehow stem revolutionary Republicans from their anti-imperialist path, then they have gravely misjudged the situation. Internment isn't something that ended in the 1970s. It is very much a part of everyday life for those within the Republican camp." Murney concluded, "To those who sit on the fence and ignore that internment is happening, we would encourage you to do the right thing and take the Republican position of condemning British internment rather than selectively ignoring it, thus making yourselves complicit by silence. For our part, we in Saura and the IRPWA stand firm against repressive policies imposed by the occupiers, and we send solidarity to Brian and Rory." On 10th February, an event was held for imprisoned people's lawyers Betul Kozaçlı and Seda Şaroldu at the Athens Bar Association in Greece. It was organized for the court hearings on 12th February and 20th February of people's lawyers in Turkey. The event was organized by the People's Law Office International, and 20 people participated. Speakers were the lawyers Günay Dağ, lawyer from Turkey, of People's Law Office International, Yanis Rahiotis, lawyer, Anastasia Matsuka, lawyer responsible for alternative lawyers, an initiative member of the executive committee of the Athens Bar Association, Kostas Papadakis, lawyer. The moderator of the panel was Konstantina Kartsiotti from the Anti-Imperialist Front. Russia and the USA. Russia and the USA hold talks in Munich, a scandal from a German perspective. Donald Trump announces a meeting with Russian representatives in Munich. According to Germany's highest circulation newspaper, Bild, the very Russia-affiliated, AfD-affiliated and right-wing extremist Compact and Telegram bloggers Russian diplomats are meeting with US delegates in Munich, where the security conference is currently taking place, which should be impossible due to sanctions. But the will of US imperialism is the command of the vassals from Germany. How was this achieved? A US fighter jet from Russia is said to have landed in Moscow and flown the Russian delegation to Munich. Russian aircraft are not allowed to fly to Germany, but American aircraft are, and Germany was not asked, not even Zelensky. He merely said, "I don't know anything about a Russian delegation, but perhaps others know more." The camera entered Georges Abdallah's cell for the first time. Rima El Hassan, French-Palestinian lawyer and member of the European Parliament, visited Abdallah in his cell. Abdallah said, "As long as women, men, and comrades fight for another future, there is the possibility of changing this reality of massacres, genocides, and their legitimization." According to other information from French sources, they again tried to get Abdallah to sign a petition in which he apologized and regretted his acts of resistance, but he refused. This document would have led to his immediate release, but he never agreed to this because he was a staunch revolutionary who never took a step back from his stance and his resistance. Held captive for 40 years, Lebanese revolutionary Georges Abdallah, who dedicated his life to the Palestinian struggle, will stand trial on 20th February. On 6th December, Abdallah was released on condition of deportation to Lebanon, but his release was suspended upon the objection of the French Anti-Terrorism Prosecutor's Office. This hearing may again result in a conditional release decision. Georges Abdallah is the longest imprisoned prisoner in Europe. Arrested in 1984, he was supposed to be released in 1999 on condition that he leave the country, but for 25 years he has been arbitrarily held hostage. Throughout his imprisonment, he continued his resistance and even organized hunger strikes for the Palestinians who started hunger strikes in the occupation prisons. On 6th December, he sent the following message after the release decision: "My release is a small detail in view of the conditions of the world and the repeated attacks on the rights and freedom of peoples. Today, the highest judicial authority in France minimizes the fact that Israel is committing genocide. This is precisely the crime committed by the Israelis and the Americans in Gaza and Lebanon. I will never give up my words and my convictions and will remain in this position for the rest of my life." The Group Yoram film Mahalle, or Neighbourhood, released in 2022, was shown in various venues in England, London and Northampton over the past week. The film describes urban regeneration pushed by the AKP government in Turkey and by US investors, and resistance to the destruction of their neighbourhood by revolutionaries. The system uses fascist drug gangs as part of its efforts to impose its will. Not limited to Turkey, we see Donald Trump's efforts to turn Gaza into a real estate bonanza. This is the face of capitalism and imperialism. And that is Anti-Imperialist Front TV news for this week. For news outside the mainstream, follow us on social media. See you next week.